What if the people God chose to save his nation were exactly the kind of people you'd never trust with a job? Not generals, not kings, not priests. A left-handed man with a homemade sword hidden under his robe, a woman sitting under a palm tree, a terrified farmer hiding wheat from his enemies, a man whose greatest strength became the source of his greatest ruin. These are the judges of Israel. And here's what's remarkable and what most people miss. God didn't choose them in spite of their weakness. The text shows us something far more disturbing, far more beautiful. He chose them because of it. Stick with me, because by the time we reach the last judge, you are going to see a pattern in this book that will change the way you read every story in Scripture. Before we meet a single judge, we need to understand the world they were born into. Because this is not a world of order and law. This is not the kingdom period. This is not the time of Moses with a clear voice from the mountain and a pillar of fire to follow. That era has ended. Joshua has died. The generation that crossed the Jordan, that witnessed the walls of Jericho, they're gone too. And this is the world left behind. The Scriptures open the book of Judges with one of the haunting phrases in all the Hebrew text. Judges 2:10. It says, "After that whole generation had been gathered to their ancestors, another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel." Read that again. A generation that knew nothing. Not just people who forgot, not people who drifted. A generation that had never known, never seen the miracles, never heard the voice, never felt the presence of the God who had split the sea and brought water from stone. Now, what's remarkable here is this sets up every single story that follows. Because the book of Judges is not at its core a military history. It is not a record of battles won and lost. It is a theology of human forgetfulness and divine refusal to abandon what has been forgotten. The cycle is simple. You'll see it repeated 12 times. Israel forgets God. Israel falls into sin. Israel is oppressed by surrounding nations. Israel cries out. God raises up a judge. The judge delivers them. The judge dies. Israel forgets again. 12 times. 12 different judges. 12 different kinds of unlikely warriors. And 12 times God answers. The Scriptures reveal to us something profound in this structure. God is not surprised by human failure. He anticipated it. He worked through it. He used it. And if you watch closely, very closely, you will begin to see that the judges themselves reflect something about us, about every person who has ever felt too broken, too small, too compromised to be used by God. Let's meet them. The first judge is almost too clean, too perfect. Othniel, son of Kenaz, nephew of Caleb, a man already proven in battle. He had taken the city of Debir in the days of Joshua. He married well. He came from a respected lineage. If you were designing a judge from scratch, you might design someone like Othniel. But here's what the text actually shows us. Even in this most straightforward story, the emphasis is not on Othniel at all. Judges 3:10, "The Spirit of the Lord came on him." That phrase, that precise phrase, will appear again and again through this book. It is the engine of every deliverance. Not training, not lineage, not strategy. The Spirit of the Lord. Othniel judges Israel for 40 years. The land has peace, and then Othniel dies, and Israel forgets. Now the stories get stranger. Israel is oppressed by Eglon, king of Moab. The text tells us Eglon was a very fat man. That detail is not an accident. In Hebrew narrative, physical description carries meaning. This is a king who has grown enormous on the abundance he has taken from others. He has dominated Israel for 18 years. And the man God raises up is Ehud, son of Gera, a Benjaminite. And here is where the text gives us a detail that would have stopped every original reader cold. Ehud was left-handed. In the ancient world, left-handedness was considered a deficiency. The Hebrew word used here, itar yad yamino, literally means restricted in his right hand. It was not a neutral observation. It carried social stigma. But watch how God turns the stigma into the strategy. Because Ehud was left-handed, he strapped his blade to his right thigh, the opposite side from where any soldier or guard would think to look. When he was searched, entering the palace of Eglon, no weapon was found. He delivered his tribute to the king. He dismissed his servants. He came back. He said, "I have a secret message for you, O king." Eglon sent everyone out. He rose to receive the message. The text says he rose from his seat, a posture of honor and reception. And Ehud reached across with his left hand and drove the blade home. Now, what's remarkable here is not the violence, though the text is unflinching in its detail. What is remarkable is this. Every dimension of Ehud's deliverance depended on the thing that marked him as lesser, his left hand, his so-called defect. The very thing that would have disqualified him in another story became the instrument of liberation in this one. The text doesn't judge. It simply shows us what happened and invites us to understand. Some judges get chapters. Shamgar gets one verse. After Ehud came Shamgar, son of Anath, who struck down 600 Philistines with an ox goad. He too saved Israel. An ox goad, a farming tool, a long wooden rod with a metal tip used to prod livestock. 600 men. No army, no strategy described, no theological commentary, just a farmer with a farm tool and 600 enemies on the ground. Why does the text include Shamgar at all if it only gives him one verse? Because the text is making a point. Shamgar is evidence. Not every judge is remembered with a full narrative. Not every act of deliverance makes the evening report. But God was moving, even when no one was writing it down in detail, even when the instrument was a man with nothing but a stick and the Spirit of the Lord. Take a moment with that. We need to pause here, because Deborah is not what anyone expected. In a book set in ancient Israel, a deeply patriarchal society where leadership was assumed to be male, military command was assumed to be male, the role of judge and prophet was almost exclusively occupied by men. Deborah is sitting under a palm tree in the hill country of Ephraim, and all of Israel is coming to her for judgment. Judges 4, verses 4-5. Now Deborah, a prophet, the wife of Lapidoth, was leading Israel at that time. She held court under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites came to her to have their disputes decided. No apology in the text, no qualification, no note that this was unusual or regrettable. The text simply presents her as the leader of Israel because she was. And this is what the text actually shows us. When God needed someone to see clearly and speak truth in a time of national crisis, he chose a woman who was already doing exactly that. She was not a political appointment. She was not a military general. She was a prophet and a judge who had already proven herself in the daily work of discernment. When Israel needed to be delivered from Jabin, king of Canaan, and his commander Sisera with his 900 chariots of iron, Deborah called for Barak and told him to gather 10,000 men. Barak's response is one of the most honest moments in the entire book. If you go with me, I will go, but if you don't go with me, I won't go. He would not move without her. And Deborah says, and this is where the text delivers its sharpest word, "Certainly I will go with you, but because of the course you are taking, the honor will not be yours, for the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." Not Deborah, not Barak, a woman. And it isn't even Deborah. Sisera, fleeing the battle, takes refuge in the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. She gives him milk and a blanket. She covers him. He sleeps. And then Jael takes a tent peg and drives it through his temple. The most feared military commander in Canaan, with his iron chariots, his 10,000 soldiers, his years of oppressing Israel, is defeated not by an army, not by a strategy, but a woman with a tent peg. the text doesn't flinch. Judges 5, the Song of Deborah, is one of the oldest pieces of Hebrew poetry in the entire Bible, and it sings about Jael. It calls her most blessed of women. Now, what's remarkable is here is the pattern that is forming. God is consistently, deliberately, almost provocatively choosing the person you would not choose, the left-handed man, the woman, the unnamed farm wife. Why? Stay with that question. We're going to come back to it. If Deborah was astonishing, Gideon is almost comedic until you realize he isn't. Israel has been handed over to Midian. For 7 years, the Midianites and their allies have swarmed the land every harvest season and stripped it bare. They ruined the crops all the way to Gaza and did not spare a living thing for Israel, neither sheep, nor cattle, nor donkeys. Israel is reduced to hiding in mountain clefts and caves, planting crops in secret, living in terror of the enemy that comes like locusts. When the angel of the Lord appears to Gideon, he finds him in a winepress, threshing wheat. Not on a hilltop, not in a field, in a winepress, a sunken pit designed for stomping grapes, used by Gideon to hide his grain from the Midianites. And the angel says, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Gideon's response is extraordinary in his honesty. He doesn't say thank you. He doesn't stand at attention. He says, essentially, where has God been? If he is with us, why is all this happening? Where are the miracles we were told about? The Lord has abandoned us. This is not a man of settled faith. This is a man in the winepress, literally and spiritually, hiding, confused, questioning. And this is who God calls a mighty warrior. Not because of what Gideon is, because of what God is going to do through him. The text walks us through Gideon's reluctance step by step. He asks for a sign. God gives it. He asks for another sign. God gives that too. He tears down the altar of Baal in his own town, but does it at night because he is afraid. When God tells him to take 32,000 men into battle, God says, "Too many, send them home." By the end of the winnowing process, Gideon has 300 men left. 300 men with torches inside clay jars and ram's horns. No swords drawn, no military formation. They surround the camp at night, smash the jars, raise the torches, blow the horns, and shout, and the entire Midianite army turns on itself in the confusion and flees. Now what's remarkable here is this. God did not use Gideon's army to win. He used 300 terrified men with pottery and fire to create enough chaos that the enemy destroyed itself. The victory was so clearly divine that no one could take credit for it. That was the point. The text is building towards something, a theology of weakness, a theology that says when the instrument is clearly insufficient for the outcome, then the outcome is clearly not from the instrument. Before we go further, I want to stop here for just a moment, because we are halfway through the Judges and a question is forming. You can feel it. It's the question the book of Judges seems to be asking on every page. I want to know, which judge are you most surprised by so far? Write it in the comments below. Ehud and his left hand, Deborah under the palm tree, Gideon hiding in the winepress. Tell me who stopped you. Tell me what surprised you. I genuinely want to read every single response. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment. We go this deep every single video, new content every week. Hit subscribe and don't miss what comes next. Because the judges we are about to meet, they are going to push this pattern further than you expect. Jephthah's story begins before he does anything. He is the son of a prostitute. His father Gilead had other sons by his wife, and when they grew up, they drove Jephthah away. "You are not going to get any inheritance in our family," they said, "because you are the son of another woman." He fled to the land of Top. He gathered around him a group of adventurers. The text says worthless fellows in some translations, men on the margins, men without prospects. That is Jephthah's community, the rejected, gathering around the rejected. And then, only then, when Ammon threatens Israel and the elders of Gilead have no one else to turn to, they come to Jephthah, the same people who sent him away, and they say, "Come back, lead us." Jephthah's response carries every wound. "Didn't you hate me and drive me from my father's house? Why do you come to me now when you're in trouble?" He goes, not because he has forgotten the rejection, not because the wound is healed. He goes because something larger is at stake. The text records one of the most heartbreaking moments in Scripture. Before the battle, Jephthah makes a vow to the Lord. "If you give the Ammonites into my hands, whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return in triumph from the Ammonites will be the Lord's, and I will sacrifice it as a burnt offering." He wins the battle. He comes home in triumph, and his daughter, his only child, comes out first, dancing with a tambourine. What follows is a moment of profound grief in the text. His daughter asks for 2 months to mourn her virginity with her friends in the mountains. He grants it. She returns, and a text records the vow was fulfilled. The text doesn't explain why Jephthah made such a rash vow. It doesn't excuse it. It doesn't defend God in the moment. It simply shows us the full weight of what happened. A man trying to secure God's favor through a promise he should never have made, and the devastating cost of it. The Scriptures reveal to us that God chose Jephthah, a rejected, illegitimate son, a man of violence who made a terrible vow, and yet the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and through him Israel was delivered. This is not a comfortable truth. It is not meant to be. The text doesn't judge. It invites us to sit with the complexity. And then we come to Samson. No story in Judges is longer, no character is more famous, and no judge makes less sense until you understand what the text is actually doing with him. Samson is born to a barren woman. An angel announces his birth, the only judge whose birth is announced by an angel, a detail that carries enormous theological weight. He is consecrated as a Nazirite from the womb. No wine, no unclean food, no cutting of the hair. He is set apart before he draws his first breath. And then the text shows us what he does with that consecration. He falls for a Philistine woman against his parents' counsel. He kills a lion with his bare hands and later eats honey from its carcass, breaking his Nazirite vow. He marries outside Israel. He is manipulated by his wife. He burns the Philistines' fields with 300 foxes tied tail to tail with torches. He kills 1,000 men with the jawbone of a donkey. He falls for Delilah, who is paid to discover the secret of his strength. 3 times he lies to her. 3 times she betrays him. 3 times nothing happens. And then, and here is the moment that breaks you if you're paying attention, after being betrayed 3 times, he tells her the truth. Why? The text says he was tired to death. Tired to death. Not tricked, not outwitted. He was exhausted. He had been living at full tension between his calling and his choices, between his consecration and his desires, for so long that he simply gave way. His hair is cut. The Spirit of the Lord leaves him. He is captured, blinded, imprisoned, set to grinding grain in a Philistine prison. Take a moment with this. The strongest man in Israel, blinded and grinding grain. But then the text gives us one more moment. His hair begins to grow again. The Philistines bring him out to mock him at a festival, not remembering that hair grows. He asks a servant boy to place his hands on the pillars of the temple. He prays the most raw prayer in the entire book. "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more." And God answers. He pushes, the pillars give, the temple collapses, and Samson kills more in his death than in his life. The text doesn't say Samson was a good man. It doesn't gloss over his failures, but it shows us this. Even a broken instrument, even at the very end, could be used. The same spirit that had moved in Othniel and Ehud and Deborah and Gideon moved in Samson, not because Samson had figured it out, but because God had not given up. Now step back, look at all of them together. Othniel, the one who seemed ready. Ehud, the one marked as lesser. Shamgar, the one nobody remembers. Deborah, the one who wasn't supposed to lead. Gideon, the one hiding in a pit. Jephthah, the one who was thrown away. Samson, the one who wasted everything. And this is what the text actually shows us. God did not pick the best candidates. He picked the available ones, available to His Spirit in a moment of national crisis, regardless of their credentials, their gender, their birth, their failures. What's the pattern? It is this. The judges were not chosen because they were mighty. They were made mighty because they were chosen. There is a difference, and it is everything. The book of Judges is not a collection of hero stories. It is a theology of divine initiative. Every judge that matters in this book matters not because of what they brought to the table, but because of what God placed in them when everything human was insufficient. Do you see it? The left hand that carried the hidden blade, that was not a human strategy. That was God using the specific shape of one man's limitation. The woman under the palm tree, in a culture that would have passed her over, the text records her words as the word of the Lord. The farmer in the winepress, calling himself the least of the least, whom God calls a mighty warrior before the battle even begins. The scriptures reveal to us something that cuts against every instinct we have about qualification and worthiness and readiness. The judges were not made from the finest material. They were made from the available material. And God is a craftsman who wastes nothing. There is a verse in 1 Corinthians 27 that reads like a commentary on the entire book of Judges. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. Paul is not inventing a new theology. He is describing what was already written in Judges, already visible in every unlikely warrior God raised up to deliver His people. So, what does this mean for us? It means this. The story of the Judges is not primarily a story about the judges. It is a story about a God who will not let go. Israel forgets 12 times. God does not forget once. Israel fails 12 times. God raises up a deliverer every single time. The cycle in Judges is not a cycle of failure. Read more carefully. It is a cycle of return. Every time, every single time, when the people cried out, God heard. Not because they deserved it, not because they had earned their way back, because He had made a promise, and He keeps His promises even when everyone else has forgotten them. Now, what's remarkable here is this. This has never changed. Every person reading these words right now knows what it is to forget, knows what it is to find yourself in the winepress, hiding, afraid, reduced, wondering where God went and if He ever really showed up at all. The book of Judges does not answer that question with an argument. It answers it with 12 stories. 12 times God showed up through left hands and tent pegs and 300 men with clay jars and a blinded man with his hands on the pillars. You are not more disqualified than Jephthah. You are not more broken than Samson. You are not more hidden than Gideon. And the Spirit of the Lord is the same Spirit. Take a moment with this. Really take a moment. The text doesn't judge what you've been through or who you've been. It simply shows us what God does with the people who cry out and invites us to understand that the question was never whether you were ready. The question was only ever whether God was willing. And 12 times, the answer was yes. Every judge of Israel was an unlikely warrior, every one of them. Not because God couldn't find better options, but because the text is teaching us something that no amount of theological argument could teach as well as these 12 stories. God does not wait for you to be worthy. He makes you useful in the moment you cry out. That is the book of Judges. That is its theology. That is its gift to us. If this video opens something up for you, a question, a connection, a moment of recognition, I want to know. Tell me in the comments, which judge speaks most to your life right now? Which story landed? Which character felt less like ancient history and more like a mirror? I read every comment, every one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Every week we go this deep. We do not skim, we do not oversimplify. We follow the text wherever it leads, with reverence and honesty and the conviction that these words were for us. Next video, we are going to look at something that has been hiding in plain sight in the New Testament for 2,000 years. You do not want to miss it. Until then, keep reading, keep asking, and remember, the text always has more to say than we gave it credit for.